Family can be complicated. Planning a wedding highlights the family dynamic that you already have. And sometimes it can be good. It can be a bridge to make things better. But sometimes it's just a reminder of the less than ideal relationship that you have. So today I'm going to give you 3 tips to manage your family's expectations for your wedding so that you can all come out on the other side of this more connected and hopefully less frustrated. I'm Laura-Anne Smid, and I help Catholic couples navigate engagement and newlywed life. I also photograph Catholic weddings, and I am married myself. So all the tips today are based on my personal experience, having just gone through this whole wedding planning thing a few years ago. The first tip I have for you is to set expectations with your fiance. I know this is about managing expectations with your family, but in order to do that, you need to know what the two of you want for your wedding first. And you should be on the same page in terms of the plans, what you want for the day, the vision, the budget, like all these things that you need to figure out together before you can start talking to your families. And not that you have to have everything decided before that, but it is very helpful to be on the same page. I have a free download for you if you're like, okay, yes, we absolutely need to get on the same page. Go download this thing that I have for you. I have a product called the Wedding Guide, and that is like everything you need to plan your wedding. And the download I have for you that is free is the setting expectations section from that guide. So this section goes over all the questions that you could ask yourself and each other about your wedding day. So things like, just as simple as what will make your wedding day the best day ever? What are the most important things that you want to include on that day? How much of the planning do you want to do? Or do you need to outsource something? Just all those things. So you can answer them together. And then when you've talked about what you want and have agreed upon that plan, you can feel confident that you're both sharing the same info with your families. Which brings me to tip number 2, which is set expectations with your family sooner than later. How can you manage expectations with people if you don't set them first, right? Frustration comes from unmet expectations. So if your mom or whoever has an idea in their head about how they want this wedding planning season to go, of course it's going to be frustrating if it doesn't go according to that plan, and then you're on the receiving end of it because you have a different plan than them. Now, some expectations that parents have might be unrealistic and not at all what you have in mind for your wedding, and that's okay. This is why talking with your fiance first about what you want is so important, because then you know what the general plan is and you can communicate to your family that plan sooner than later. And if you leave your family out of the loop for too long, they'll probably feel left out and they might start making plans and giving you ideas, and then they're confused about why you don't like their ideas, and that might cause a little rift between you guys, and you can see where that all goes. So my advice is to sit down with your family for a phone call or a lunch or something where you can share the plans that you have in mind so far. If you feel like you need to get ahead of this, like you're engaged but haven't actually made any plans yet, like you don't have a vision for the day, you can basically just casually tell your family, like, hey, we're so excited to plan our wedding, but we haven't decided on anything yet. So when we have something to share, we will. Just that simple gesture can go a long way to keep everyone aware of what's happening so that, they might ask questions or, give you input, but you've told them what to expect from you for the next while. If you're ready to sit down and chat about your ideas in more detail, but maybe you don't know where to start, or you're worried there's going to be like a lot of opinions to navigate, you can start with something like, we're happy to share our dream wedding ideas with you. We've spent time thinking about what we really want our wedding to be like, and it's exciting for us to be making these decisions as a couple. Just to set the stage for what this conversation is going to be like, and that the two of you have been intentional. You have thought about things at this point, and you want to make sure that idea that you are doing this together as a couple is first and foremost in this whole wedding planning thing. Then once you share your ideas, there's probably going to be some sort of, did you think about this? Or why don't you do that? And honestly, this is A, just part of wedding planning in general, but also B, it's just part of how conversations go, just any conversation. You know, you share your ideas and then they share their ideas back. So expect there to be some kind of feedback in this conversation. And the key to coming out of this conversation, not frustrated with the person giving you those ideas, is to be rooted in knowing what you want, while also remaining humble and open to good ideas. Some things that people suggest will be totally not your style, not just no, right? But all you got to do is say thank you for the idea. You don't have to do it. You know, and it's something I hear a lot, that parents want one thing and the couple wants another, but the couple does what the parents want. And on one hand, you want to honor your parents, but this is your wedding day. It's not theirs. You are the ones entering the sacrament of marriage together and celebrating your relationship in a way that speaks to who you are as people and the story that's been unfolding this whole time you've been together. And this is why setting expectations with each other first is so important. I cannot stress it enough. It is so important. You know what you want. And sure, you'll take ideas from your family that line up with the vision that you have, but this is an exercise in being a team and doing what you as a team have decided to do. Where this gets tricky is when it comes to who's paying for the wedding. And sooner than later is when you need to have that conversation as well. In the wedding guide, I talk about budgeting for your wedding, including having this specific conversation. But the quick rundown is that everyone needs to know what the expectations around money being spent are. My husband and I expected to pay for our wedding ourselves, and we told our families this right from the get-go. Brandon, my husband, his parents offered to pay for alcohol, and my mom ended up paying for my dress. So the money that each set of parents gave to us was for specific things, and we knew that from the start. And you need to establish what the expectations are around wedding plans and who's paying for them. Because if you're paying for everything, it's much easier to stick to what you want since you're footing the bill, right? But if you're not paying for everything, you need to figure out if there are strings attached to the money that you're being given. So first, you need to figure out if there's money coming from outside of yourselves. If there is it a free gift and it can be spent however you want? Or is it for a specific line item like food? And if it's for a specific item, does the person paying for that item get a say in the specifics of that? Food, for instance, if you guys want a casual, laid-back reception and you're thinking a barbecue buffet is exactly the right kind of a vibe, but your parents think that a plated 3-course meal is more appropriate for a wedding day, who gets the final say? You have to be specific in these expectations, otherwise you're going to bump heads. All these details help to establish clarity and boundaries around money and spending regarding the wedding. Really what you're doing is setting expectations with your family so that you can then manage those expectations based on what you talked about for everything. If things start slipping away from either party or the details become fuzzy, you can check in with your family and remind them of what you talked about. And they are able to do the same with you. And if I could go back now, I would honestly write an email to the people that we had conversations with after we had those conversations, listing everything that we established so that we could all have, it would be so much easier to have that than to just have each person's individual recollection of what transpired in that conversation. We had this conversation with my parents, the setting expectations around wedding plans and money and all that. And we told them what to expect from us and what we expected from them and vice versa. But somewhere along the way, key details were forgotten. And it made it difficult to manage expectations when one party didn't remember what those expectations were. So have those initial conversations about wedding plans sooner than later to nip any potential frustration in the bud. You'll just do the best you can if someone forgets, and you can revisit, have this conversation again. But I think that'll be so key in being able to move forward and not be frustrated with each other. My third tip is to be gentle with each other. In some ways, planning a wedding is one of the first things you do to really leave your family and cleave to your spouse. Even if you were like me and you moved out well before you got married, your family of origin was or is probably influential in your life decisions to some degree. But now you've got someone else, your fiance, who is more influential than your family. And it's the natural progression of things, right? That as your fiance becomes your spouse, your priority becomes your spouse, not your family of origin. And not that you're ditching your family or don't care about them, but it's the right order of marriage. You are supposed to leave your family and cleave to your spouse. You are making your own family when you get married. This is a big change for your parents as well. Your parents are on a journey to your wedding day too. Being involved in the planning will probably help them feel like you're not forgetting about them as you begin your married life. I get it. Parent relationships can be difficult and frustrating at the best of times, but this can be an especially tender time as the state of your relationship is magnified by this major life event coming up, good or bad. If you've got a great relationship with your parents, I mean, not perfect, but great, I can imagine that the feeling your parents have of letting you go to start your married life is difficult. You know, you're their baby. No matter how old you are, you're their baby. That's what I hear from parents, is that kids, no matter how old they are, they're their baby. And if it's really wonderful and you're really close together, that would be hard to let go of such a close relationship and to have it change. I mean, it's a beautiful thing that's happening, and I don't doubt that they think that, but it's still hard. And if your relationship isn't so great, which I can sympathize with, it might bring up a lot of complicated feelings that your parents might not even have the words for. And I don't think it's your job to mitigate their feelings, to hold their hand through that, but it can do wonders to be gentle with them throughout this process. just assume they're doing the best they can. And if you're not getting what you need from them in this time, be gentle with yourself too. It's okay to be disappointed with how things go between us and our family. It's okay to be sad about leaving your family as well. We are supposed to honor our parents, and I think being honest and open is one of the best ways we can do that, especially if we want an authentic relationship with them, not just a surface level one. And this season in particular, as you are engaged and preparing for marriage, might not be the time to bring up old wounds. It might be, but it might not. But I do know that God is heavily invested in healing, especially in families. So maybe this time and having these kinds of conversations is setting you up for more healing down the road. That's a bit of a tangent. I realize that's a tangent, but it's important to remember nonetheless. So there you have it, my 3 tips for managing family expectations for your wedding. The first, set expectations with each other. And the second, set expectations with your family sooner than later. And the third, be gentle with each other. I hope that's helpful. And I really do hope that this season of engagement brings you closer to your family as you have these conversations. See you next time.